Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we will dive into a very exciting topic, leadership development that delivers at scale inside Thermo Fisher Scientific's award-winning frontline leadership experience. This session is eligible for HRCI, SHRM, and ATD professional development credits. Now let's meet today's speakers. First, we have Amanda Carroll. Amanda is the Director of Talent Development at Thermo Fisher Scientific. We have Donna Iacoppucci, the Chief Executive Officer at Intelligy. We have Suzanne Taylor, the Senior Manager of Global Talent Development at Thermo Fisher Scientific. We have Richard Cacavalli, Vice President of Marketing at NovoEd, and Michael Rochelle, the Chief Strategy Officer and Principal Analyst at Brennan Hall Group. A huge shout out to today's webinar sponsor, NovoEd. Founded in 2012 out of the Stanford Social Algorithms Lab, NovoEd is an enterprise talent development technology provider that enables organizations to scale high-impact learning, mentoring, and practice. Built on proven learning science, the NovoEd platform drives engagement, collaboration, and skill application to develop a future-ready workforce. Global enterprises rely on NovoEd to foster deep capability building and continuous workforce transformation. Please be sure to visit them at www.novoed.com to learn more. Now, before we dive into today's content, let me tell you about Brennan Hall Group and some incredible opportunities that could accelerate your career. Brennan Hall Group is a leading professional development firm that has been serving learning, talent, and HR executives worldwide for more than 30 years. We've advanced the growth and performance of millions of employees and leaders through our cloud-based platform, delivering evidence-based research, data, and certification programs that empower organizations to achieve excellence in every area of human capital management. Our impact spans more than 10 million employees and executives globally, supported by our comprehensive research library, strategic insights, and prestigious awards program. Below is a sample of the organizations we are proud to partner with. We have incredible learning and networking opportunities, our two BRIC events happening later this year, our AI Summit on October 15th, and our Leadership Summit on November 17th and 18th. And don't forget to save the date for next year's 2027 HCM Excellence Conference happening January 26th through the 28th. All details for everything I've mentioned will be available in a PDF you'll receive within 24 hours after the webinar. Now, based on everything I just went over, I'd like to launch a poll, and I would like to know what you would like to learn more about. Is it our Institute, awards program, the 2027 HCM Excellence Conference, or maybe it's one of our BRIC events? I'll leave this up for a few more seconds. All right, awesome. Thank you, everyone. We are excited to share that at the end of today's webinar, we will be selecting one lucky raffle winner to win $100 off a Brennan Hall Group Institute membership. Stay tuned to see if you are the lucky winner. You must be present to win. Now, just a few quick things to note. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the questions panel on your control bar. We'll be answering them throughout the session. We're also recording today's webinar, and you'll receive an email within 24 hours with a link to the recording and a PDF of the slides. The chat box is open, so feel free to share your thoughts as we go along. Your input makes this more valuable for everyone. Now I'd like to pass things off to Michael Rochelle.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. Hope everyone is starting to have spring is sprung where you are, trying to enjoy the beautiful weather that's been a challenging winter up here in Boston. So we're looking forward to getting some great springtime weather up here. And it's great to see. Michelle's from Massachusetts, and she's still waiting for spring too. But again, welcome. I'm Michael Rochelle, the Chief Strategy Officer, Principal Analyst. I'm very excited to have the honor to join such an expert panel. It's going to be super cool to hear the insights from these folks. Just wanted to bring to everyone's attention kind of what the agenda is all about. But as I put in the chat, we want to make this webinar valuable to you. So get the questions coming. I'll be asking things in the chat as well to kind of stimulate your thinking, but let us know what you're thinking. Give us your comments. The experts are here to be able to weigh in on those comments and questions. Let's make it a super interactive opportunity for us. So what are we going to be talking about? So we've got benchmarking. So what we're trying to figure out is when you're scaling leadership development from one-off programs, how do you know that you're doing it right? What are the conditions around getting that right? Everyone's looking for that framework, that piece that allows us to kind of create the portrait, that charcoal sketch that allows us to understand how we get this right, particularly when it comes to aligning frontline leadership to the enterprise strategy. You probably heard this a lot, embedding learning in work. Same thing here. We got to get this done, but it's also into real managerial work. So everything's in the flow now, zero proximity learning, as they say. Reading about it in the right hand and doing it with the left hand. And then we're also going to be talking about some insights and lessons around scaling. And scaling now is a challenge, right? We also think about like we hear about things like, yes, I have 10,000 employees. We're on 3 continents, 12 time zones, 20 languages, but everyone wants personalized learning. So we got to talk about how do we scale, but the idea being is how do we think globally, but we act locally? And how do we take into consideration all of that without sacrificing consistency? And then you love the word defensible, a defensible measurement lens for proving leadership impact. So I want to kind of give you the ins and outs of that business case ROI, where you can really set up all that great effort that you're putting into your programs to show what maximum impact it's had and actually help to have the business stakeholders see it the way you want them to see it. So I'm pretty excited about what we're going to be discussing today. And if anyone has any additional things they'd like to cover, just drop it in the chat. Okay, so we're going to launch another poll. So what we're after here is we would just like to know, and it helps our group of experts too, is we're just trying to figure out where do you think your leadership development program falls from a maturity standpoint. So phase one being like kind of doing it as we go, reactionary, kind of ad hoc, doing it when we need to, doing it when we're asked. Standardized being like we're getting some policies in place, trying to get some of that consistency and reproducibility. Still a work in project. And then strategic is, we're all in. AI is going, we've got all sorts of cool things happening. We're trying to expand how we're thinking about leadership development, and maybe we're pushing it into multiple levels of the organization. And then four is all systems go. Yeah, end to end, top to bottom, world class in terms of leadership development. In fact, we're even offering leadership development to everyday employees because we want to know that every person in our organization is a leader. So where do you stand? Let's take a look, Ivy. Let's share the results. Okay. So about 60% of folks are in that phase one, phase two, and about 33% are in the strategic. Well, doesn't really surprise me from the research. I'll just throw it out to our group of experts to say, does this surprise you in any way? And do you have any particular comments about where the audience sits?
No, I think that's pretty common to see that split, to be honest. It's the reality of where a lot of people are today.
I agree too. And also, for people in the chat, also be interested too to say is that when you throw AI into the mix, how would that potentially change what phase you think you're in? So we're going to keep going because we have a lot to cover. All right, so let's rip some of the headlines off of our research here. So as we look through, and we have the world's largest awards program in HR. A lot of people call it the Oscars of the HR environment. It's not just to do that great recognition on stage every year, people, but also it's a great source of data for what are the best and next practices. What are award-winning organizations doing to get it right? So there's just some great stats here when we talk about leadership development at scale. I'll let people just kind of look at that and kind of soak it in, but you can see where these are high percentages, which means that this is a prevalence data. This is where when we look across award-winning programs, these are the things that they're doing most often, or these are the things that are most often found in the programs that we have. Top of the list, getting that alignment with leadership development to business strategy, getting those structured pipelines to enable scale and consistency, getting that kind of leverage blended learning across a multiple modalities. Leaders like to learn from their peers. They're immersive. They love to be able to get practice in a safe environment. Also, we see that these folks are also collaborative in their learning. So they're trying to get other leaders together in order to learn. And then KPI dashboards, the people that are really into learning and really into active leadership and active learning sequences measure it. And they're measuring it to show without leaders doing the right things the right way in the right place, that we're not going to get anybody to do anything properly. And then finally, they're actually trying to show a business case ROI on the leadership development program itself. So they're actually saying, because of this program, we're able to drive these particular business outcomes. And so the investment, time, resource, dollars that we put into this leadership development program, the time we took leaders away from work, we can add all of that up and put it against a real dollar value of what we help the company to do different or better or both and show a real ROI. So pretty interesting stats, I would say. Okay, so kind of rounding out here, what are the key takeaways that we saw in our research? So scaling, which is what we're talking about today. The key to scaling is good foundational elements. That is business strategy and not treated as a standalone initiative. So no leadership development in a vacuum. We got to ground it. We have those structured pipelines and blended delivery because what we're trying to do is as we have rapidly growing global organizational settings or even mid-sized organizations, things are changing all the time with the business. And so we have to have structured ways of delivering leadership development to be able to take into consideration those twists and turns. That collaboration, what we love about that is we say that that turns development into real capability. As leaders are sharing best practices, collaborating with one another, sharing ideas, working together, and having that opportunity to learn from one another, they're not just learning what they need to learn, but they're actually building capacity and potential that they didn't have before. I love this tagline straight out of our research. The difference between activity and impact is measurement discipline. So it's not about how far people got in their leadership development program. Did they finish? Did they get a certificate? Where are they? It's more about the summation of what they've learned. Has it been able to be effectively applied to drive a real change in individual team and organizational performance? And then organizations that excel don't deliver programs. They look at leadership systems. And this is going to be an ongoing piece for everyone out there across all of HR, is we're moving away from programs and initiatives to a systematic way of thinking about how to develop people and build capacity. So it's not about training. It's about building that system, align your strategy, get your experiences down, and set up real measurement criteria to show real impact in the program to your organization. So that's ripped from the headlines of our research, and we'll continue our journey. So I'd like to introduce the real experts that are on this webinar. It's not me, but we've got the folks from Thermo Fisher that are going to kick off our team of experts and be able to talk about what I think. And I got a chance to review this when we were putting the webinar together. It's a fascinating story. So I'm going to jump right over to the team from Thermo Fisher to take us through it.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Carroll. I am the Director of Talent Development here at Thermo Fisher Scientific. Really happy to be here and talk with the group here about how we've built leadership development at scale. I figured what I'd do is kind of kick us off by talking a little bit about the company, and then I'll pass it on to the masterminds behind our Developing Frontline Leaders experience. So we can go to the next slide. Just a few facts about Thermo Fisher Scientific. It is the world leader in serving science. We have over 40 billion in annual revenue and more than 120,000 colleagues globally. So our mission, you can see it here on the slide, is to enable our customers to make the world healthier, cleaner, and safer. And it really does guide everything we do. We support customers across life sciences, diagnostics, and biopharma. And we do it through unique technology, services, and some industry-leading brands. What I think really differentiates us, though, is that not just what we do, which is impressive, but how we do it. We have highly engaged colleagues who really understand their role in delivering that mission. And it's really refreshing for me to see is the belief that talent is our critical competitive advantage. We invest in development, we develop our people, we strengthen our leadership capability, and we really do create opportunities for our colleagues to grow in their career. Next slide. So most people probably on this call know that most organizations don't have a leadership training problem. they might probably have a leadership consistency problem. So really, are our leaders actually doing what they should do consistently and not kind of just one-off in little different spaces? So here at Thermo Fisher, we really think talent development is recognized as our core organizational capability. It's not just a program. So we offer formal learning, we offer on-the-job experiences, we offer coaching, we have technology-enabled solutions, simulations, AI coaches to meet the needs of our large global workforce. So our goal is always, always, always going to be about building capability at every level, and we really need to strengthen our leadership pipeline. You saw that we have over 120,000 colleagues, so that need for a strong and consistent leadership bench is critical. That's where Developing Frontline Leaders, or as we call it, DFL, comes in. With a great partnership with Entelechy, DFL was created to really establish that common language and equip our frontline leaders with practical, actionable skills. We want them to be able to lead their people, build relationships, and drive performance, and that was the goal. At this point, I'm going to hand it on to our exceptional program owner who has brought us to this award-winning space, Suzanne.
Thank you, Amanda. Oh, goodness. So, DFL, it's been a journey and it's been a brilliant journey. So I'm really happy to be here today to talk to all of you about that. Over the past decade, Thermo Fisher has grown rapidly and it's grown significantly and largely through mergers and acquisitions. And that growth, whilst it's been incredibly positive for the business, it has created a very real challenge for us from a leadership perspective. I joined Thermo Fisher 10 years ago. We had 50,000 colleagues globally. We've now got over 120,000. And what we were seeing 10 years ago is very different leadership experiences, depending on where people sat within the business. At the same time, many of our leaders were being promoted very quickly because they were exceptional technical experts, but they hadn't necessarily been equipped with the skills to lead people. We did annual employee survey data. We love listening to our colleagues, and our employee survey data really made the gaps very clear. We saw systematic issues in feedback, coaching, and just day-to-day people management, and we knew that was a gap that we needed to address. Employees weren't receiving feedback, whether it's specific or actionable, and they wanted and needed that feedback to get better. And our managers lacked a consistent approach to developing their teams. From our perspective, it wasn't just a capability issue, though. It was a business risk. Manager effectiveness was directly impacting engagement, performance, and ultimately our culture. And without intervention, we really risked fragmentation as we continued to grow. And so it became very clear that we needed a very scalable, enterprise-wide approach to leadership development, one that was practical, consistent, and focused on behavior change. And that takes us nicely to our second poll. So what do you think is the biggest challenge in scaling leadership development globally? We would love to hear from you.
And we always offer choice number 4, which is if there's anything else you'd like to add in the commentary, just drop it in the chat. We can address that too. There's always really great nuggets and insights that are stimulated by questions like this. So,
Ivy, I'll leave it to you to share when you're ready. Okay, so we've got 24% saying maintaining consistency across regions and cultures. That's definitely something we saw. 15% aligning programs with business strategy, and the majority of you, 61%, are saying measuring real impact beyond participation. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's something that we have struggled with, but it's something that we've got to, and I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about that in a moment.
yeah, it's interesting. Matthew brought up, he threw in an extra resource constraints.
We've all been there.
And Lauren also brought up aligning programs with shifting programs, business strategy. It's a moving target, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. Okay. So onto the impacts. So DFL, we're incredibly proud of it as a program. It has become our cornerstone leadership development program, and it's now delivered through 3 different modalities. So we deliver it through in-person deliveries, virtual deliveries, and through social learning formats. Since we launched it just over 10 years ago, we've had over 9,000 managers go through the programme. Those 9,000 leaders have come from 56 different countries, and that represents about 45% of our eligible manager population. So really lovely to see so many people going through it over the years. One of the things that I want to call out is that the programme isn't only scaled, it's really highly valued. Our colleagues absolutely love this programme. We consistently see a Net Promoter Score of 9 out of 10, and we see 98% of colleagues stating that they are either highly satisfied or satisfied at the programme close. More importantly, though, than our colleagues loving the programme, is that we're seeing real measurable impacts. So we do pre and post assessments. We track through those assessments significant increases in our leaders' confidence in critical performance conversations and in core leadership behaviours. And we're also seeing some really strong signals of talent progression. So 22% of participants have been promoted or moved into expanded roles within 24 months of completing the programme. But the biggest shift that we've seen is cultural. So it's about the day-to-day conversations that we hear and see managers having. It's totally embedded into the language that you hear discussed on a daily basis. It's built into one-to-ones, it's built into mid-year reviews, it's built into performance reviews, it's built into performance improvement conversations. And so I think what's really great is that we've moved from leadership training being this one-time event to leadership being this very visible everyday practice across the organisation. And we're really proud of these numbers, but I want to talk to you a little bit more about how we got there. So Ivy, thank you. So you might be wondering why frontline leaders? It was a very deliberate choice to focus on frontline leaders initially. So these leaders, we believe, have the greatest day-to-day impact on the employee experience, and they are critical in translating our strategy into action. I always say I want every employee to come to work smiling and I want them to go home smiling. And the one person that enables that to happen is that person's manager. And so when you think about it in that perspective, having managers who are able to support their employees in a really consistent, robust way is just critical. And so our view is very much if we could strengthen capability at this frontline leader level, we knew it would have a disproportionate impact across the organisation. But we were also very clear on what success looked like. Because for us, it's not just about delivering a training programme, it's about building a consistent leadership foundation. We wanted to have a shared leadership language. We wanted increased confidence in critical conversations and consistent performance management practices globally, all grounded in our 4A values and competency framework. And when you think that a large part of our growth strategy is through mergers and acquisitions, having this very strong shared leadership language and shared way of working, it's critical to help integrate people into our company. And so having that clarity really allowed us to design something that would truly drive behavioural change, not just learning. Thank you.
Before you go on, Suzanne, great question from Michelle. How many leaders get trained per year? And does the program go to the participants or do the participants travel to the program? If the latter, how many different locations do you train the program in?
So we have, it's increased dramatically over the last few years because of how we've scaled the program using technology. So we're currently up to around 3,000 seats per year that we offer. And there's a real mix between in-person, so about 30% of our seats are offered through classroom in-person deliveries. Those are run by trained internal facilitators, and we currently offer DFL Classroom, I believe, in 18 different countries, in 12 different languages. Then we have DFL Virtual, which is a webinar-based series. We have around, I want to say, it's a couple of thousand seats that we offer through DFL Virtual, and then through DFL Social, which is through the NovoEd platform, that's got an even broader reach. So that is truly global in 56 countries because we do the deliveries in English, but the translated materials through the platform are in 28 different languages. So that's been a major shift for us. And so we offer around, it varies. Last year we offered more, this year we've shifted slightly, but it's around 3,500 seats per year that we offer currently for DFL. And in terms of participants, the classroom in-person ones, we tend to really focus on our sites, which are heavily focused on manufacturing, distribution. And so we're putting our leaders in who might not necessarily be able to step out of the business for, well, they prefer to have a more focused approach and step away for like 2 solid days and go through the classroom training rather than take a more flexible approach to like managing their schedules. So it's just something that we found it works. Different modalities work for different populations. Okay.
Would
Shall
you
we
like
move
another
on?
question?
Yeah, I'll take a question now.
Okay. So one comment from Greg is he's really happy to see that you're still making a big commitment in in-person leadership. But Michelle had a follow-up question. If the program's been in existence for 10 years, how often do you update materials to stay current with
Mhm.
trends like AI, stuff like that? And how long does it take to complete? Do you do it on different shifts?
Okay. So the DFL classroom is 2 8-hour days. So it's 16 hours over 2 days back to back. DFL virtual is it's 2 hours of pre-work and then it's three 2.5-hour webinars. And then DFL social is it's a blended learning format. So it's over a 5-week period, and we have a 1 hour kickoff session in week 1. In week 2, we have 1.5 hours of live learning virtually, and then in week 5 we have 2.5 hours of virtual live learning, but the rest of it is weekly online self-paced learning and cohort peer-based discussions. In terms of refreshing the materials, it's stayed pretty similar for about the first 5 years or so. So we had classroom only for the first 5 years. And then when COVID hit was when we first introduced DFL Virtual, and that was a much lighter version. We've just gone through a complete refresh and rebrand in the last 6 months. And so this year we have launched a new, more detailed version of that. And then with DFL Social, we launched that 2 years ago. But we tend to review the content every 6 months just to
Hmm.
make sure that we're looking at feedback and we're looking at comments from employees and that we're always making small adjustments.
Another question. So Steve's asking, what are those assessment instruments? You're asking them their perceived abilities or asking others around them? How are you measuring a visible leadership practice? How is it visible? Great questions.
It's a brilliant question. So we are very grateful to our friends at NovaRed for that, because through their system, we can do pre-assessments and post-assessments. And so we're asking the employees to self-assess their confidence levels against 10 core behaviours and leadership competencies that we believe to be critical to successful leaders at Thermo Fisher. We do invite them to get manager and team input when they're making those self-assessments, but ultimately it's down to them to make those self-assessments, and then they get the same assessment at the end of the program. And what we tend to see is on average an increase of 15 to 18% of people having a strong increase in confidence against those 10 different behavioral competencies. Okay. It's more anecdotal. I just saw that question flash up. So Adam, it's more anecdotal. All right, so let me pass over to Donna now, because she is one of the core reasons this has been so successful, because our partnership with Entelechy has just been critical to all of this. So Donna, I'll pass it over to you for you to talk a little bit more about our design philosophy.
Awesome. Thank you, Suzanne. It's a pleasure to be with all of you, and it's been an honor to be a partner with Thermo Fisher for a lot of years. We've been on this journey together for over 12 years, so it's been a exceptional journey together. The design philosophy, so it started back a while ago, as Suzanne said, and but our design philosophy has always stayed the same. It's about being practical and not theoretical. It's very real world, performance focused. The models are usable, simple, and people find them extremely valuable. So when they leave the program, they actually have models to use right away, right out of the gate. So that's been a critical component of its success. Another part of our design philosophy together has been consistent and scalable. Suzanne's talked a lot about that so far. The scalability has been a critical component. Having a common language across the organization around leadership and around certain models. How do you coach? What's the coaching model we use? How do we give feedback at Thermo Fisher? When you have a difficult conversation, what does that look like? So there's a consistency, and it's not only in the DFL program, it's also across other programs within Thermo Fisher's leadership curriculum. So it becomes part of why the culture has been impacted in such a strong way, as both Amanda and Suzanne have described. Additionally, part of the design philosophy is learning through application. I think everyone on this call who's been involved with training would know, right? We don't want to just sit and learn, right? We don't want to be told. What we want is an opportunity to apply. So there's lots of practice, lots of feedback, reflection. There's an action planning document called the Management Action Plan that they are able to leave with and go and have future conversations with their managers, with their people. They leave with job aids. There's peer learning opportunities. So it's very action oriented and implementation driven. And lastly, in the design philosophy, there's a consistency around being social and connected. And it's that way across all modalities. So whether it be classroom, virtual, or in the NovoEd social learning platform, it is similar across all of them in that there are opportunities to really connect with others. And we find that a lot of the feedback has been about how important that was to them and how much they learned being in those environments. The other component in the design philosophy that's critical is also reinforcement, making sure that we have opportunities to reinforce. And Suzanne has been the project manager for this within Thermo Fisher for quite a while and has just done a fabulous job of making sure those things fall into place. There's also a manager's guide. So it's a guide that's given to the manager of the participant, and they know kind of a summary of what it is that's being discussed and what are some of the key skills being learned, and then how can they actually support that and reinforce it back on the job. So that reinforcement component has been really important. There are activities that they go away with to meet with their manager, have discussions with their manager, and so forth. So that's the kind of the basis of the design philosophy for all of the components of the DFL program. And if we can go to the next slide, please.
Donnie, got a question. I'm going to jump in.
Yes.
So Terry's asking,
Great.
what kind of connection do you make between or across levels of leadership in the organization? And how do you get everyone on the same page? And
Oh,
then
yeah. Oh, go
Peter's got a
ahead.
part two. Do you have any sense of how often managers are using the guide?
Okay, so Suzanne, on the how often managers are using the guide, I will let you answer that, but I do have an answer for Terry. So,
So we introduced the manager guide about 12 to 18 months ago. And what was really interesting was that we saw a significant increase in requests from managers who weren't initially eligible to participate in DFL because they were too senior. So we have actually expanded who's eligible to participate because it's no longer our pure frontline leaders who want to participate in the program. We're now getting our mid-level leaders and our more senior leaders up to senior director level participating because they're getting the manager guide and going, oh, I don't know how to have these conversations. And they're loving the content. So what we've seen is a real push from the business. The way we have written both the participant guide and the manager guide is that they are deeply interconnected. And we are very open with both the manager and the participants that, hey, to the participants, your manager's been provided a guide and they're going to be having weekly conversations with you. And then in the manager communications, the manager guide, we say to them, your participants this week have been told the following, and this is what they are expecting you to speak to them about. So they're holding each other to account, and we see strong correlation We also have a feedback survey at the end of the program, and one of the questions we ask is about manager support, and we get around 92% of colleagues saying that the managers are very supportive of them. So we believe that that manager guide is having a really strong impact.
And that's a lot to be said because I think we've all experienced where we've been in classes and the people say, well, is my manager going to go through this? Because they really need to learn this too.
Oh,
So
it's so
that's great
true.
to hear. It is
Yeah,
so true.
yeah.
And to answer Terry's question, um, I think some of what Suzanne said actually answers that. But also, one of the things that Thermo Fisher did that I thought was brilliant and helped to make sure that the learning was really reinforced at all levels of the organization is they ran an HR focused group. So
Mm,
they learned the skills. The HR teams learned the skills. They learned the models, coaching, feedback, difficult conversations. They learned the analyzing performance model. So how are these leaders that are coming to them using the analyzing performance model? They knew the model to be able to understand that and also make suggestions. It also allowed for HR to be key champions for this work being done throughout Thermo Fisher. And all of this made it far more of a cultural shift than just a program that was run, right? So I think that going across between managers' involvement, not both with the manager's guide, but also assignments within each of the modalities where the manager needed to be involved, made a huge difference. And them being bought in and there being consistency across the board in the use of the models, the focus on how important performance management is for Thermo Fisher as a whole. Um, so I hope that answered your question, Terry. And I'm going to move on to this slide on how has the delivery model evolved. So Suzanne made reference to this, and we've talked about it. Started as a classroom program, and during the pandemic moved into virtual, and most recently over the last few years it's been built out on the NovoEd platform as a social learning experience and had tremendous results. And the across all three of the modalities, what was similar in the structure and how it was designed is it was customized for Thermo Fisher. So it wasn't done generically. It was tailored to the leadership expectations, the competencies. What is the culture? What are some of the challenges that Thermo Fisher was having, as Suzanne mentioned earlier, having such a merger and acquisition type of an environment, and then also having so many different cultures involved and needing to have that in mind as the program was built. So that was critical. The customization, aligning it to real business scenarios. So they have scenarios, they have behavioral demonstration videos that are used to help them learn how to use the models. They go off into breakout rooms, or they meet together, or they're on the platform together where they're practicing. And so these are their scenarios. So it's very customized across all three modalities. Additionally, it was designed to be scaled globally. So that global scale came into play, for instance, in the virtual. Many of the virtual ones are done in the local language of those that are attending, and then the classroom is done in that way as well. It became really important to have the virtual created during the pandemic, and in turning on a dime, Suzanne made mention of it being reimagined again, and it was because during the pandemic, I think we were all going, what the heck, right? We need to still have training, and so the virtual was created. And then, as what Thermo Fisher's always been wonderful at is always, making sure we're looking at the feedback together. What are the metrics? What are the impacts? And then making changes to that. So we reimagined the virtual experience over the last few years and have found that to be even more powerful than it had been. So that was another piece of the delivery model. The built for sustainability became really important. So in Telekey, we did a lot of the initial classroom training many years ago. We would be the one excuse me, the ones doing that classroom training. And what it didn't allow for was full scalability across the organization at the level of what they needed. The wait lists became extraordinarily big, and there were people who wanted to be there that couldn't be. So having now virtual and social, what we were then able to do was create more of a train the trainer model to scale. And so, and Teleki goes in, we train the trainers, and then the trainers in across the world are now doing localized training. So it allows for the program to be scaled and to be done locally and to be done for those that need it most, as opposed to being on a wait list for a year or more. And it also enables translations to happen, which has been really critical. And the NovoEd platform now allows for that translation to go on seamlessly for the social learning component as well. So there's lots of opportunities for this to really be a globally accepted and a global program that has tremendous impacts to the business. So with that, we're going to launch another poll. So. And which element is most critical for effective frontline leadership development in your mind? Now, I read these and thought all three are so important. So let's see what you say is most critical.
Hey, while people are noodling on things, question came in, clarification from Kristen. I'm not sure that I totally understand the social element. How does it differ from the virtual experience? Shorter or what is different?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a brilliant question. I'm so glad that you've asked that, Kristen. So we call it DFL Social. It's really a social learning experience. And it's a very different experience from virtual. So DFL Virtual is very much people being talked to through a webinar series. So they have, like I say, an hour and a half, 2 hours of pre-work to do. That includes e-learning. And then they come in and they join 2.5 hour webinars where they have a facilitator who's really talking to them. They go out into breakout groups. They still get to do role plays and practice activities. But the interactions with each other is limited just to within the virtual live learning events. DFL Social, on the other hand, is about 50% of the time, actually probably 60% of the time is spent through self-paced learning. So the platform through NovoEd has enabled us to build out almost like chapters or weekly modules that get released. Each week they'll go in, they'll read through the learning materials that is condensed down into different modules. There are discussion threads, there are activities they need to participate in. So it's about learning from one another. Each week they also have to do a milestone learning assignment where they have to upload either a video, an audio file, or a written script that is reflecting on or completing an actual learning assignment. So for example, if it's about feedback, we ask them to write a script or upload themselves practicing giving feedback using the feedback model to somebody, and it can be positive or constructive feedback. And then in order, because there's quite a strong gamification aspect to the system, in order to gain points, they have to provide feedback and respond to at least 2 other people within their cohort. So straight away from week 1, the participants are using the models to provide feedback to other people in the cohort and to learn from one another. So it's a really interactive way to get people to put into practice what they're learning and to then bring it back, share with each other, and to get feedback and suggestions from one another about how they could be more effective going forward.
So we generated all sorts of interesting questions, which I'll ask, but I want to just share the poll results. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody overwhelmingly. But let me just start here. So we've got a series of them. So the first question is, how do you handle if and when leaders don't complete the assignments?
This is the beauty of the NovoEd platform. There's a number of automated communication and nudges that get sent out. So if people don't complete the milestones in a timely manner, they get nice little personalized messages emailed to them saying, hey, we noticed you've not completed such and such, don't forget you need to do this to remain enrolled in the program. So we're very upfront with them from the beginning, and we let them know that, hey, if by the start of module 3 you haven't completed milestones 1 and 2, you will be unenrolled for non-participation. And that normally is enough to keep people on track. And once people start to see that there is traction within the platform, what we do is the facilitator also goes online and provides feedback to individuals. You can tag people and then they get a little notification that, hey, somebody sent you a message in NovaEd. So it drives them to that. So the facilitators help drive a lot of people to the platform, but participants are also very good at when they want to leave a comment for individuals, tagging them in. So it's bringing people into that. But we do, midway through the program, if we see people falling behind, in addition to the automated nudges, I send out an email to that group who are falling behind and just say, hey, notice that you are falling behind. Like, don't forget, we have been contacting you to offer support. If you need additional support, please let us know. But if you don't catch up, we are going to have to remove you. And we do see significant progress normally after that little midway nudge.
And a good segue, since you brought up
Good.
NovaWid, just is differentiators. Like what made you lean in for their social learning versus other platforms? What was the thing that stood out to you?
They were actually recommended to us by IntelliKey, so I will let Donna answer that one.
Well, and I was also going to add one thing on what Suzanne was saying for the question about monitoring and how the participants are involved is there's also milestones that are established and completion requirements. And so they need to finish certain parts of the program in order to call it complete. And as Suzanne said, they're being notified throughout where they're at with that as well. So that's all part of the design to make sure that what the key takeaways are taken. So, so with regards to NovaEd,
Donna, just to jump in,
yes,
we also have a leaderboard, and the competitive nature is ridiculous
yes.
that
Oh,
you
that's
see.
so true.
So
It's
they get
so
points for
true.
like making comments or participating in discussion threads or recommending resources or completing their milestones, and they can move up or down the leaderboard, and there's fierce competition to be at the top.
That's so true. It is. And so to answer your question, Michael, and a question that had been asked is IntelliKey has partnered with NovoEd for many years. We have seen their evolution and the amazing features of the platform. And after doing our own research, we chose to align IntelliKey's social learning version of our Unleash Your Leadership Potential program and our Leading Leaders and our Aspiring Leaders program, all having the opportunity to be delivered on the NovoEd platform. So when we were working with Thermo Fisher, having done the classroom version and then doing the virtual version during the pandemic, we were talking regularly and looking at how could we be even better. And with our experience with NovoEd, we spoke to Thermo Fisher about that. And together we worked with NovoEd to take a look at how that might serve them in the Developing Frontline Leaders program. And I think we've just found ourselves to be thrilled with the results. So,
Okay, I'm going to transition this over to Rich so we can continue the discussion. We'll try to get to the remaining questions that we have and others as we get closer to that Q&A mark. But Rich, you want to take it from here?
Sure. I think next slide, we have some resources. Right. Oh, we're still.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, I got to turn it back to our presenters to finish this first.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Rich. And I think one of the things we wanted to really talk here about was reinforcement and just how critical this has been when it comes to behavioural change, because we all know that behavioural change doesn't happen in a single event. As much as we would all love to send our colleagues and employees and managers onto a training event and have them turn into the perfect employee who does what they've been trained to do, we know that's not the reality. So we built a really comprehensive reinforcement approach to support leaders beyond the initial experience. So first of all, we provided really practical tools, so job aids, manager guides, and e-learnings. Secondly, we really embedded that action through structured plans and opportunities for leaders to apply what they've learned. We've also added AI agents that enable managers post-program to go and role play and to practice real scenarios before going out and having those tougher conversations with individuals. Third, as we've said, we've leveraged that social learning and peer accountability to sustain engagement. So we've got very strong cohorts that maintain engagement with one another post-program. And then lastly, it's about the measurement and the reflection. So we've talked about the pre and post assessments already, but the importance of that is so critical in helping leaders really reflect on their growth. And I think together, all of those elements ensure that learning translates into sustained behavioural change and real business impact. I'll talk quite quickly at this because I do want to make sure we get time for more questions. But for us, operationalizing at scale, we've talked about this a lot, but scaling DFL for us wasn't just about delivery. It was really about embedding leadership development into the way the business operates. So for a lot of this, it was about embedding it into real key moments. So it's written into onboarding and onboarding plans for all new colleagues, whether that's an internal move into people management for the first time, or if it's an external hire joining the business. It's written into our mergers and acquisitions integrations playbooks. And so all of that helps really ensure consistency as we grow. We've really leveraged technology over the last few years and data to drive engagement and visibility. And then we've really built internal ownership. So there's an absolute expectation. It's not a mandatory program, but there is a strong expectation that leaders will go through the program. And there's got to be quite a good justification for people not to do it. And through that train the trainer model that Donna emphasised earlier, and through management involvement, we've really enabled the business to deliver and to sustain the programme globally. And together, this has really shifted leadership development from a standalone initiative into a core embedded capability within the organisation. And it's one that we're incredibly proud of. It hasn't been without its challenges, as I'm sure you can appreciate. When you need to deliver a consistent experience across a rapidly growing organisation, whilst initially relying heavily on external facilitators and navigating strong preferences for in-person learning, there have been a few bumps in the road, but we've got through those. I think the introduction over the last few years of the virtual and social programmes has seen a significant shift, both in the use of technology and in behaviour, but it has also now become almost an expectation from our colleagues that they can do that. Language and accessibility were absolute critical considerations when we were looking at how we could scale this more globally. And we addressed this through a deliberate and phased approach. We have a very strong culture. We call it practical process improvement, but we have a very strong continuous improvement philosophy at Thermo Fisher. And so a lot of our mindset was very much, let's take progress over perfection. And we can keep reviewing feedback and we can keep reviewing the data and we can keep making it better, but let's just get as many bottoms on seats as possible and get as many people through the program. And then we can make it even better in the future when we need to. But for now, it's about getting people through the program. There's a few things here that we've got some takeaways for you to have. So just a few things here that you can learn. So firstly, start with the business, not the training. Our approach has been and always will be grounded in real challenges around leadership consistency, engagement and performance. Secondly, focus where it matters the most. Frontline leaders have the greatest impact on the employee experience, so it's really critically important that that's where we concentrated our efforts. And then thirdly, design for application, not theory. One of the biggest differentiators for us was the use of very simple, practical leadership models that leaders could immediately apply on the job. And that shift from conceptual to actionable was critical in driving behavioural change. And then finally, build from scale from the start. I think that's a really big one for me. So this means really designing for consistency, accessibility and flexibility across a global organisation. So we have 5 different time slots that we offer. We make sure that we offer them on a regional basis. We avoid all public holidays in those regions on delivery dates. So it's just some of the practicalities. And then lastly, this model here that you can see really brings together everything that we've shared with you today. And what I want to emphasise is that what's made this work at scale isn't just any one single element, it's just a set of conditions that we've been very deliberate about. So I'll stop talking because I can see a lot of questions coming in and I do want to make sure that we've got time for anything there that is critical. So I'll stop now, but I'll just leave you with this final quote to reflect on. Rich, are there any questions from your perspective that you'd like us to address?
I think that was great, and we got to so many questions in the presentation itself that we'll have to really compress here for our wrap up questions. I'd actually like to see, since Michael kicked us off, Michael, if you could give us like the 1 minute version of when you hear a story like this, what stands out as the non-obvious reason that this program actually delivered impact?
Great question. It really comes down to effort, and personalization. That's really what it is. When we work with organizations, and we do work with Thermo Fisher, really what it is, it's a testament to how connected you are to the learner themselves, the leader themselves. Have you taken the people process technology aspect of it and wrapped it around the learner to create an immersive environment, especially with leaders that are extremely busy, tight on time, a lot of priorities. And that's really the care that goes in because when you build it from the outside in, when you think about what you want to try to accomplish and what the leaders really need to know, and work backwards into what do I have to put in place to create that immersive environment, high impact, measurable results become organic to the program. For folks in the audience, when we look at award-winning programs, they all do that. And for folks that are thinking about, well, I want to move away, as we talked earlier, from an initiative to a system, that's the biggest difference is we don't start from the inside out and say, hey, leaders need to know this. So let's build it and send it out to them. It's starting from the outside in. So that's really the care and attention with an organization of this stature takes and other award-winning organizations take.
Great answer. Thank you, Michael. I do want to point out that there are some assets available, and when all of the participants get the deck, these will be linked, but they're also being put in the chat right now. I know we need to wrap up and get to the raffle, but before we do that, I would like to maybe just do a rapid fire from our panel of from Thermo Fisher and Entelechy is what's the one thing you would do differently if you were starting this program again today? Like Donna, why don't you kick it off as from the Entelechy side, and then we'll hit Amanda and Suzanne.
Absolutely. So this one right away, I think if I had it to do over again, we'd have all three modalities from the get-go because it served the global audience in such a positive way and allowed everyone who needed or wanted this training to get it in whatever way served them best. And so rather than adding NovoEd and the social learning piece at the end, we would have done it all up front, all three, virtual classroom and social learning.
Yeah. I think there's two
Excellent.
things. Yeah, two things from my perspective. The first is that I would design for reinforcement and measurement even earlier on in the journey. And then secondly, I would accelerate our internal capability when it comes to facilitation. And I would have accelerated that earlier because there's something incredibly powerful about having local facilitators. And we have a mix. It's
Totally.
primarily HR, but we have some business leaders involved as well. And when they take ownership and they're the ones that are out there like running the program, you really see a difference.
And for me, I would just say, I think it was the change. I didn't expect that HR or people would really struggle from that in-person experience to the social or the virtual experience as much as they had. So it's the change management piece. How can we bring them along instead of here it is now change? Yeah.
There's a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
That's true.
Excellent answers. Thank you. We had so much engagement that I really appreciated this conversation. Ivy, could we go to the next slide and we'll get to wrap things up? I want to thank everyone for talking about their experience and building this program on NovoEd. You've all said more than I can. So if anyone in the audience is interested, please come to novoed.com and check us out. And Ivy, I'll turn it over to you for the raffle.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you again for NovaEd and sponsoring today's webinar. I'm excited to share that Kristen Whiting has won $100 off of Brennan Hall Group Institute membership. Congratulations, Kristen. We'll be reaching out shortly with more details.
And I'll jump in
Okay.
on behalf of all of us here at the Brandon Hall Group at Intellecti and Thermo Fisher and of course NovaWed. What a tremendous, I was just on the edge of my seat seeing how all these answers were coming out. Great questions. Thanks, everyone. I think it was very informative. We'll be getting out the PDF for the presentation and recording before the weekend. We wish everyone well. I wish we could have had 2 more hours to go through this. This is turning into a master class of how to do
It's
things
true.
right. And it covered the full gamut. It covered organization, governance, people, process, technology. It was fantastic. Thank you so much. And we look forward to a time when we can follow up with you and continue the journey on this amazing program that you've put together. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Be safe
Thank
and
you.
happy spring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Michael.
all.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.